So the first procedural process we're going to talk about is using extract to kind of pull off these different elements of our helmet and give us new subtools to kind of start sculpting on. So here I just have the original scan data of Paul loaded in. I also have my on-screen reference of the actual conceptual helmet images that have been loaded into Spotlight. And I've already gone through on the STL and generated a base mesh out of the scan data. So if you come over here to the subtool palette, you can see I have my original scan data on top, and then I have a duplicate subtool version of that model that I have mirror and welded to make it symmetrical, and I've also turned it into a Dynamesh so it has even distribution of polygons across the entire surface. Now, as you'll notice, I've actually gone through and scrubbed out all the features that Paul had in his original scan. So you can see I've removed his nose, his eyes, his mouth, his ears, and made kind of this blobby type surface. So this blobby type surface is going to serve as the inner depth of our helmet, so the area or the shell in which Paul's head is going to fit in. So it's actually the interior structure of the helmet. So if I come over here to the subtool palette and turn on the original scan data, and then go over here to the transparency option and turn ghost off, you can see that Paul's head will fit inside this volume that I've kind of pulled out from that base mesh I created from the scan data. And you can kind of rotate around and make sure that Paul's head is fully engulfed in this volume. So this is going to serve as that inner structure. So when I'm actually building the helmet, I want to make sure that nothing actually goes inside of this structure, but all the helmet features actually come out of the structure. So I'm giving thickness outward instead of thickness inward. And this is going to give me that kind of base shape established for that interior part, so when this actually goes to be 3D printed, I'll have a nice cavity that Paul's head is going to be able to fit right inside. Another thing to take notice of is the amount of empty space I've kind of left around Paul's scan data here. And this is to err on the side of caution. So if you look at my scan data, it was pretty rough. So I'm not getting 100% accuracy off of that scan data. So when this actually gets turned into a tangible element, I want to make sure I have enough clearance around Paul's scan data here so it fits. You have areas of cartilage on your body, such as the ears, so I could go thinner on those parts. But if you've ever worn something that's really tight on your head or really tight on your ears, it gets extremely uncomfortable after a while. So just giving a little more kind of airy space around those areas is going to help with the wearability of the model when it gets turned into a tangible element. Another thing to note as well is I kind of have this space here kind of carved out of that lip of the actual helmet, where it will actually touch the neck. So I don't really need the base of this model anymore. So at this point, I'm just going to duplicate this base mesh again, and I'm just going to store it as a duplicate object in case I need to hollow out the helmet afterwards. So if I start flushing in a lot of details and they actually start going through this kind of interior space here, I can do a subtraction process and remove the interior again if needed. So now I'm just going to select the duplicate object here, and I'm just going to remove this base bottom here. I don't really need it because you can see the helmet doesn't have any kind of neck structure to it. So I just want this actual helmet part here, and I'm not concerned about that bottom area. So I'm going to first turn off perspective by hitting P or coming over here and clicking the perspective button. Next thing I'm going to do is hit B on my brush menu, and I'm going to isolate by the letter S and locate the select lasso brush. You get a little dialog that's going to tell you that that brush is now the active selection brush, so just hit OK. And now if you hit Control and Shift on your keyboard, you're going to notice that you should now have the select lasso brush selected. So holding Control and Shift and dragging this out, you're going to get this lasso selection, and you just come through and kind of hit that area right below the neckline of the helmet, and then hold Alt to turn that selection red, and when you release, it's going to hide that portion of the mesh. So now this portion's hidden, I just need to kind of fill that hole and do a little bit cleanup. So I'm going to come to the Geometry tab. I'm going to come down to Modify Topology. I'm going to do a Delete Hidden, which is going to hide that portion we just isolated with the Select Lasso. And I'm going to do a Close Holes, which is going to come in and fill that surface. Now, after you do that Close Holes, you're going to notice that topology in that area isn't really perfect for sculpting. So I'm going to go back to that Dynamesh area, make sure it's active, and then I'm going to hold Control and drag out and re-Dynamesh that mesh, which is going to come through and generate the topology again across the entire model. Now I come in with the smooth brush and just kind of smooth that transition out a little bit and get that kind of helmet line generated again. So now if I go back to my subtool and turn on the original scan data, you can see I have a nice smoothed out interior base shape for that helmet generated and ready to be extracted. So now the extraction process is actually pretty simple inside of ZBrush. The main functionality is that you want to come in on your mesh, and so say if I wanted to make this kind of shape here, you locate that area in the model and you just kind of mask that shape out. So I'm just coming through and simply just masking an area. And I have symmetry on, so I'm getting masking on both sides of the model here. After you have a mask set up where you want it, you're going to come over here to the subtool panel and go all the way down to the bottom, and there's an extract button right here. So there's a subpalette labeled extract, and below it there is an extract button. Now if you line this up on your screen, you want to make sure you can see the area on your model when you actually do this. And you come over here and you're just going to hit extract. Now when you hit extract, it's going to give you a preview of what is going to happen. So this isn't doing anything to your model now, and as soon as you kind of rotate, it's going to vanish that extract function away. So it's a preview functionality of kind of seeing what's going to happen before it actually does happen. So the first thing you'll notice is that this panel here, it's kind of taken that masked area and generated a object that kind of has thickness to it. So it's taken this part here and almost did an extrude or an extract off that surface. Now this little SMT over here will control the smoothness value. So at an extract of 5, you're going to see some of this kind of roundness come in on their shape here. And then the thickness value is going to control the thickness of that extract. So if I wanted this a little bit thicker, I'm going to come over here and put, say, something like 0.1 and then hit extract, and you're going to see I'm going to start to get that kind of panel or that kind of piece larger than it was originally. After you have it the way you kind of like it, you just come over here and hit accept. So if I hit accept on this guy, it's going to take that part that you had as a preview and it's going to generate a new subtool for you. So if I come back down here to that extract 3 now, you can see I have a new subtool based on that masked area of the model that was then extracted. Now one thing to note is if I turn off that little inner helmet shape there and turn on, make sure I have my scan data on and get out of solo, is you can see that that extracted data is actually penetrating past the initial interior space that I wanted to be held. And this is because I had this double-sided option on right here. So it's actually generating this thickness out this way and out that way from that center line. So since this is a helmet, I want that kind of interior shape held through the entire surface of the model because Paul's head needs to fit inside of it. So if I come back to the original thing here that was masked, I'm just going to turn double off and now hit extract. And now I'm going to get this new object that shouldn't be penetrating that initial internal structure. So after you're kind of happy with the thickness, come over here and hit accept, and now it's going to generate a new subtool for it. And so as you can see, this one that it generated now has given me that clearance that I've already kind of established from that initial base mesh that I pushed out away from Paul's scan data. So now that you have this kind of flushed out, you'll notice you get some nice poly grouping around this area here. This poly grouping comes into play because you can actually polish based on this grouping. So if I come down here to the deformation panel, there is a polish by groups feature. So right now you'll notice that this extract is a little bit rough around the edges. I'm going to first clear that mask. And you can see, so I'm getting a little bit of warping. Well, since this is set up in these nice poly groups, so I have a poly group for the interior section and then around the borders, I can actually come over here to this polish by groups and just slide this up, and it's actually going to come through and make all those groups kind of polish and give you a nice kind of smooth surface across everything. And so you can keep hitting this over here by just doing this slider here. You can also come down to the bottom and just do repeat to active, and it's going to repeat that process. So if I do polish by groups at 100% and then just come down here and do repeat to active, it's going to keep doing that polishing feature. So you don't always have to come up here and just keep scrolling like this. You can do it once, come down to repeat to active, and it's going to repeat that process as many times as you click this button. So now you can just go back to the original form here again and just start creating some more masks and pulling some more shapes out. So I'm going to hide this one. And with the helmet having a lot of these overlaying places here, I'm going to come through with mask and kind of leave a lip edge on some of the stuff, and then I can start coming in and start playing with different forms. So something like this. Just go back in with Alt to get some of these edges a little bit harder. And then do the same process, come down to extract. It should keep the same thickness you originally put in, so if I want this panel to be a little bit thinner, you need to come over here and adjust this. And then hit extract. Also on the preview you'll find out if you missed any areas you're masking. So you see I generated a spot there, so I'm going to go and unmask that area really quick. And now you can see that part's gone, and then just accept that. And you just start building up your helmet kind of shapes like that. So just masking and extracting, and you can start coming through and getting these forms kind of fleshed out pretty fast. So, and then just come back in and polish by groups to clean up stuff like so. And then you can always come in with your move brushes and different kind of attributes and kind of sculpt the form as well to kind of pull your shapes in and out like so. So a very fast way to kind of start building up, this kind of helmet design, especially if it's kind of have all these little parts and things in it. So it's going to do a few more sections of that really quick. So I'm going to come in and start masking this top part out. So I'm going to clear my original and just come in and kind of mask this top section out really quick to get that kind of dome shape on the top there. You can also use the lasso selection mask brush if you want. You can also use alphas to really kind of free form onto what you can kind of use to design kind of forms here. Just something like that, and then do that extract to get that thickness, and hit accept. And now I have that new shape kind of fleshed out. Clear the mask, go to deformation again, and just polish by groups to get that angles kind of smoothed out like so. Then go in with move and make sure you have symmetry turned on, because when you do the extract it actually turns symmetry off, and actually just start pulling these kind of different shapes and forms on the model like so. But that's the process of using extract to kind of build up your different parts of your helmet like so, and that gives you really nice kind of clean geometry as you work, and it's a really fast kind of workflow to kind of get a lot of these panel lines established very fast. Another quick trick as well, when you start getting all these kind of separate subtools kind of hammered out, if you just hold Alt and click on a subtool or a part of a subtool, it'll actually switch that subtool. So when this is extremely helpful when you have a subtool list that's up in the hundreds. You just want to isolate one part or sculpt on it, just hold Alt and click and it'll switch right to that subtool. So you can quickly just go through and select the different subtools of your model very fast by just holding Alt and clicking on them. So another little tip there for using ZBrush with all sorts of subtools that could be built up with all these little extracted pieces. So that's how you use extract inside of ZBrush to kind of generate some quick shapes for sculpting a helmet.